The quiet after the storm is the heaviest kind. A line has been crossed that cannot be uncrossed. Now we step into the silence he left behind. We need to expand our intelligence network. We must uncover Seol Unhwi's plans, his weaknesses, everything. What about using the open sect? I don't think it's wise to entrust everything to them. Just as we have contacts in the open sect, that bastard has his own connections there too. I'll send the Red Flame Ghost Shadow into Jiakin. Jang Unhyeong's eyes widened. The Red Flame Ghost Shadow, who was that? An assassin, first of all. But more than that, an expert in crafting facial disguises and highly skilled in specialized arts like reversed use techniques. His martial level was at 5 foundation origins. Exceptionally talented in infiltration, getting him inside should pose no issue. And how about breaking the relationship between Seol Unhwi and Seol Unhwi? That would be ideal, but the method... Jang Unhyeong smiled. There's someone under my command who's close with Seol Unhwi's disciple. I'll use him to sniff out a weakness. And you'll use that to sow suspicion? Exactly. Ha ha ha, you truly are a remarkable man. Today you've impressed me, Jang Unhyeong. The two of them had no intention of accepting Unhwi's offer. The power they'd held as rulers of Saryang, there was no way they could give that up. They'd endure until support from the main alliance arrived, and in the meantime they would cause disruption. Seol Unhwi would be too busy defending from within to give attention to Saryang. If he wanted Saryang, then he would have to pay a price. And they would make sure of it. No matter how clever that bastard is, he doesn't have the experience to swim in the deep waters of Murim. We'll be the ones to make him realize that. After finalizing the details of their plan, Jang Unhyeong and Gang Cheolson set out for Saryang. The sound of horse hooves faded into the darkness, and once the two men disappeared, a man dropped down from the sky. It was clear he had fallen from an incredible height, yet the ground beneath him didn't show even the faintest dent, like a feather had landed. A man, no, an old man, with a massive spear almost 2 jang long strapped to his back, smiled in clear amusement. Well, would you look at these little shits? After standing still for a moment in thought, the old man turned and began walking. While swinging his sword in the training yard, Unhwi slowly rotated his neck. Blood vessels, muscles, nerves, everything was functioning normally. He had used far more blood energy than expected when killing the Black Flame demon beast, Urine, but his recovery speed was excellent. And now he could move himself again. You really are a monster, you know that? At the sound of a voice, he turned his head. It was Ju Soa. She was handing him a bowl filled with a murky liquid. Drink this. It's a mix of sinsamwa, beekbakryong, and a bit of licorice root. It's supposed to help with recovery. He accepted it without hesitation. Did Lee Myongwa from the medicine pavilion make it? Well, yeah. She made it herself, so I figured you'd know how good it is. Unhwi chuckled softly. I do. Too well, that was the problem. He drank it all in one go without a second thought. Oh, I forgot to mention, she calls that stuff Sinsum Restoration Tea. The immediate reaction it produced proved its effectiveness. I've been curious about something, she said. Can I ask? Go ahead. It's nothing major. I heard from Commander Seong, you gave Saryang a 2-day deadline, didn't you? To be precise, it was 1 day. And today's the end of that day, right? It is. Should I call people? Who? You know. Yangso from Jiakin, Lord Song from Bangri, everyone you can reach. Unhwi shook his head. No need. Then are you planning to resolve this peacefully? Of course not, Ju Soa snorted. Knew it. Well, if you need anything, let me know. I'll go polish my... She stopped mid-sentence. Her expression turned cold in an instant, without a moment's hesitation. She drew her sword and immediately swung it toward Unhwi's side. Thunk clink, it was the sound of Ju Soa's sword being caught, and someone else's sword being caught too. Unhwi slowly turned his head. He hadn't sensed when the man had arrived. An old man stood there, a massive spear nearly 2 jang long strapped across his back. His face was weathered and dark, with long gray-streaked hair, and his golden eyes gleamed like a dragon's. In his right hand, he held Ju Soa's sword. In his left, he held Commander Seong's. Heh heh, you little punks. When you see your elders, you should greet them properly. You don't just go swinging swords, do you? Huh. The old man's gaze was fixed on Unhwi, and Unhwi didn't look away. What an annoying face. If that's a compliment, I'll take it, Senior Guang. You know who I am? How could I not? Unhwi's gaze shifted to the spear on the old man's back. A nearly 2 jang long spear, every part of it dyed black, with a jagged blade shaped like a dragon's fang and crackling with thunder. That must be the Heaven Thunder Black Dragon Spear, Chenro Hukrioncheng. As far as I know, only one person in the world possesses that weapon. Black-faced spear King Gwang Han. Back when Unhwi raided the Cheongsu village Tianlin branch, he had fought a spear master at the 5 Foundation Origins level. His nickname was One Dragon of the Furious Sea, Nohi Ilryong. His name, Tak Juk, and Gwang Han was Tak Juk's master. Unhwi had once been told to pass along a message to him, though the old man seemed to have arrived much later than expected. Ha, the bastard from Snow Palace's side family has good eyes. Just then, he released both Ju Soa's and Commander Seong's swords. Hey, you crazy old bastard. Do you even know where you are? Chin Peng's roar echoed as his greatsword descended from the sky. In that brief moment, Unhwi sent a sound transmission to Gwang Han. He's one of mine. If you kill him, you won't get any information on the divine spear. Gwang Han frowned and waved his arm. B-O-O-O-M. Chin Peng was struck down faster than his own sword had fallen, slamming into the ground with a thunderous crash. Gwang Han tilted his head. He even let out a curious noise. Unhwi was about to step in to speak, but Gwang Han held up a hand. You wait a bit. His gaze was locked onto Chin Peng, and in that gaze was clear interest. Chin Peng was on the verge of passing out. Wait a minute. I'm the one who swung the sword, so why am I the one flying? His entire body felt like it was churning. It didn't seem like he'd suffered internal injuries, but that wasn't because of any great strength on his part. The old man had held back. This wasn't just any master, this was a true grandmaster who subdued Commander Seong and Ju Soa with one hand each. Hey kid, what's your name? Me? Yes, you. What's your name? Chin Peng. Chin Peng harmonization stage with dual light manifestation, not bad strength. Thank you. That's enough. Try holding this for a moment. Gwang Han pulled the spear from his back and tossed it toward Chin Peng. Startled, Chin Peng caught it, but it was so heavy that his legs sank into the earth. Still, he didn't fall over. That alone was enough. The Heaven Thunder Black Dragon spear weighed 216 June, approx. 129.6 kg, and he hadn't just tossed it, he'd infused it with a bit of internal force, so it must have weighed at least half again as much. Yet Chin Peng caught it without being crushed. Look at this, he caught it. At harmonization stage? Gwang Han was fascinated. No, more than that, it was destiny. Chin Peng! His voice suddenly softened and Chin Peng almost got chills, but the next words did give him chills. Want to become my third disciple? Chin Peng didn't hesitate for a second. No thanks. No. Yeah, you already have a master then? Yes, someone greater than me, the black-faced spear King Gwang Han? Chin Peng didn't hesitate again. Yes, who is it? Even Unhwi, Ju Soa, and Commander Seong were curious now. If Han Murin and Wanyang were here, they'd be just as surprised. Chin Peng had a master. Chin Peng replied, our tower lord. Who? That man over there? He's my master. We may not have formally established a master-disciple relationship, but I've already accepted him in my heart. No, he's more than degrees NOVELIGHT degrees that. Unhwi let out a dry laugh. The others looked dumbfounded, but Chin Peng was perfectly serious. Gwang Han stared at him for a moment, then said, Kid. Yes, you have no idea who I am, do you? I mean, not really, but even if I did, I don't think it'd matter. This kid's got something wrong in the head, he muttered to himself, then tried to say something else, but Unhwi cut in. Do you want him? I do. With strength like that, he's worth raising. I once admired Juke's power, but this kid's got even more. With his build, he should be wielding a spear, not a sword. But unfortunately, Chin Peng is one of mine. So, no matter how much you want him, a person isn't an object to be bought or sold. Gwang Han chuckled. Wrong, people can be bought and sold. Anyone who's ever fought over land would know that. I know, but there's a difference between a person and my person. Oh, because he's mine, I'll leave it up to his choice. Whether Chin Peng acknowledges you as a master or not, that's not something we'll decide right now. And why not? Because you and I have a conversation to finish first. So let me ask, did you lose your way on the road? What? You're later than I expected. I thought you'd arrive sooner. Clearly, I miscalculated. From those words, Gwang Han understood two things. First, Unhwi definitely knew about the divine spear. And second, this crafty bastard had planned to use that knowledge to make use of him. Interest lit up Gwang Han's face again. It was a different kind of interest from what he'd shown Chin Peng. All right, let's get to the main point. They said I'd find out more about the divine spear if I came to you, and so I have. Took a while, but I'm here. That's what counts, right? That's right, but before that, I have a question. A question? Senior Gwang, are you someone who understands what it means to repay a favor? It must have been a familiar line. Commander Seong's eyes glinted with recognition. Wasn't that the exact same thing Unhwi had said to No Chun-myung in Sinsum Valley? Gwang Han replied, "Of course I do, you brat. You must still be too young to get it, but once you reach heaven-human unity, you can't help but be bound by debts and gratitude. Whether you want to or not, you end up repaying them." You little shit. How dare a three-flowers-gathering brat bring up favors in front of someone like me? Despite that tone, Unhwi simply smiled. That's just the kind of person Gwang Han was. He resembled No Chun-myung in some ways, but he was also completely different. Then let's make things clear. What now? If I give you information about the divine spear, you'll have to grant me 3 requests. Not just 1, but 3. Isn't this a 400-year obsession, one that even your master's master's master couldn't resolve? I can let you resolve that obsession in your generation. And you're hesitating over 3 little favors. You talk real smooth, huh? Fine. Like you said, what's 3 requests compared to gaining the peerless divine spear? If I get that, I'll become peerless myself. Go ahead, speak. The divine spear of the heavenly dragon is in Hwasong Mountain. It came so abruptly and so directly that Gwang Han, who hadn't expected anything real, widened his eyes. Hwasong Mountain. You mean the one near Walguk? Yes, the weapon once wielded by Dragon King Immortal of Yangming Spear Sect is buried deep beneath Hwasong Mountain. My ancestors said they searched every inch of that mountain 100 years ago. Then they didn't search it properly. If you give me a map, I'll mark the exact location. Where did you get this information? I can't tell you that, but please don't doubt its sincerity. And why should I trust you? Then do you think I trust you, senior? Let's stop wasting time with questions we both know the answers to. I'd rather move on. You still have more to say? I did. Strictly speaking, I hadn't planned to, but now I did. A moment ago, you said once you gained the divine spear, you'd obtain a peerless spear and thus become peerless yourself. Is that right? Probably. What? Got a problem with that? Yes, a little. Why is it that gaining the divine spear makes it a peerless spear? Heh, don't know if a kid like you can even understand this, but listen well. The divine spear is peerless. Once it's in your hands, naturally you gain peerless spear techniques as well. Unhwi chuckled. You laughing at me, kid? Can't even laugh freely now, senior? Gwang Han's eyes narrowed. The fuck's with this brat? Since we're on the topic, let me ask, if the divine spear is peerless and its technique is peerless, then what exactly do you mean by peerless? You throwing riddles at me. With your meager 3 flowers level, Unhwi's gaze turned cold. How can someone who gave you nothing but truth about the divine spear be called meager? If I hadn't told you it was in Hwasong Mountain, not only you, but your next generation and the one after that, would never have found it. The divine spear would have stayed buried until the end of the world. Isn't that right? Gwang Han's mouth shut tight, because he knew it was true. Whether or not it was Hwasong, that wasn't the point. The martial world was vast. He and his ancestors had scoured it for centuries. Even if they searched again, they wouldn't know where to start. If Hwasong really was the right place, and they hadn't even suspected it, then it could take hundreds of years more. Let me ask plainly, are you someone who uses the word peerless without knowing what it means? That barbed question made Gwang Han suddenly burst into laughter. Puh, Puhaha. You really are, just like Juke said, some next-level lunatic. Unhwi didn't flinch. Gwang Han asked him, then you tell me, what does peerless mean to you? He answered without hesitation. Above heaven, beneath earth, across all time, no person, no weapon can ever replicate it. That is peerless. Silence. Unhwi's words flowed without pause. He spoke with the kind of confidence that could only come from absolute certainty. Gwang Han, who had just moments ago scoffed at him for his low realm, had no choice but to reconsider. Now let me ask you, if it's just a spear, how can it be peerless? How can its techniques be peerless? A vein bulged on Gwang Han's forehead. That's not something a 3 flowers brat should even be discussing. Who are you really? It doesn't matter who I am. What matters is that you haven't answered my question. Staring directly into Unhwi's unwavering eyes, Gwang Han slowly opened his mouth. Peerless. Yeah, like you said, something no one can imitate. The divine spear is a gift from heaven, unmatched in past, present, or future. That's why it's the peerless spear. And naturally, it gives rise to peerless techniques. Unhwi stared at him for a long moment before speaking again. Then, according to you, peerless lies in the object. If the spear itself is peerless, then it must be heaven-given. But if heaven gave it, why didn't heaven guard it? Why did it leave the Yangming Spear Sect and pass to another master? Why is this so-called peerless spear not in your hands? Gwang Han's expression hardened. In the world of martial arts, the term peerless is reserved not for weapons, but for the people who wield them. Peerless swordsman, peerless master. It is not the weapon that's peerless, but the person. Unhwi's voice deepened. While you've been chasing the divine spear, you failed to realize that the true peerless lies beyond it. True peerless spear arts can be performed with any spear. With a black steel dragon spear, with a bamboo pole, or even, Unhwi raised a finger and pointed at the air. With empty hands, the more you obsess over that object called the divine spear, the further you drift from the real path. Gwang Han's eyes flew open. His face was a mixture of fury, confusion, and faint understanding. You bastard! How dare you? The divine spear isn't some peerless relic, it's just a weapon, and any martial technique passed along with it is just that technique. Unhwi's words struck like arrows. The moment finding the spear became your goal, you stepped off the path to peerlessness. A martial artist who depends on tools will never be peerless. Gwang Han's hands began to tremble. Something sparked in the old Spear King's eyes. Then, what you think you're peerless? His voice was barely a whisper. Unhwi replied slowly but with conviction. I am not peerless, but I walk the path toward it. A path not defined by weapons, but by inner realization. Silence. Tension stretched between the two of them. But in that silence, Gwang Han understood. This 17-year-old before him truly was a once-in-an-era prodigy. He was exceptional, beyond exceptional. The depth of martial understanding contained in his words lacked nothing compared to someone who had reached heaven-human unity. I admit it. Admit what? I underestimated you. At the very least, Gwang Han was a man who knew how to admit when he was wrong. I'm 73. Since the day I met my master, I've chased the divine spear. It was the purpose of my life. I believed it was the path to peerlessness. Do you know why? Because it was your obsession. Yeah, my obsession. Not just 10 or 20 years. Over 4 number N of yeah LIGHT number 100. My master's master and his before him. It's been passed down over centuries. Without brainwashing myself into believing I'd find it, that I must find it, I never could have made it this far. I understand. And I don't deny it. Thanks to you, I've awakened to something. You're right. How can a spear be peerless? It's the person who matters. Commander Seong, watching the conversation, thought to himself, what is it with these masters? Every time they talk to Unhwi, they end up sighing like they've aged 50 years in an hour. Maybe that was a talent too. Gwang Han, rubbing his forehead, finally said, Hwaesong Mountain, you said. Yes, I'll mark the exact spot for you. Before that, your 3 requests, what are they? You'll grant them. I was going to wait until I confirmed whether the divine spear was there. But you asked me earlier if I understood favors. You'll recall I never called you a bastard. Bastard, brat, same difference, right? If I deny it now, I'll just seem like the weird one. No, even if you don't deny it, you're plenty weird. Who in their right mind gives away the location of the divine spear to a stranger? You could have claimed it yourself. Why not? Unhwi smiled. Didn't I tell you it's just a spear? To me, people matter more than weapons or techniques, senior. Admiration began to creep into Gwang Han's expression. This wasn't just some lunatic shouting nonsense. This was the kind of man who could one day control the entire martial world. A giant in the making. And coming from a mere 3 flowers gathering kid, there was no describing that feeling. So what's your request? Let's hear it. Please accept Chinpeng over there as your 3rd disciple. Who? Him you want me to? You could have meant yourself. Not me. Chinpeng, the one holding your black dragon spear. Chinpeng, still gripping the massive spear, wobbled in place with confusion. Taking him as your 3rd disciple is my 1st request. Passing on all the techniques you gain from the divine spear to him is my 2nd. And giving him the black dragon spear itself, that's the 3rd. Oh, and when you go to Hwaesong Mountain, you'll find a corpse. Name's Hancheol. Please give him a proper burial, so I guess that makes 4. Gwang Han looked at Unhwi with an expression like he had lost the words in his mouth. A funeral? Put that aside for now. I just told you earlier that I wanted to take that guy as my disciple, so why are you framing that as some kind of request? What are you getting at? There's nothing to get at. If anything, it's just to make the priority clear. ... From the beginning, you were planning to send him to me. Yes, you're a terrifying bastard, huh? Unhwi walked forward slowly and stood between Chinpeng and Gwang Han. If you obtain the divine spear, you will see the path that leads toward the realm of the absolute. But that doesn't come from the spear itself. It comes from the soul and spirit of the one who forged it. And you, senior, must pass that enlightenment on to Chinpeng. Unhwi, who had been looking at Gwang Han, now turned his gaze to Chinpeng. His eyes were profoundly warm. This isn't a simple exchange. I am opening a path for Chinpeng, and for you, Senior, I'm giving you the chance to grasp the true meaning of the Absolute. The true Absolute, huh? Martial arts and martial ways shine only when they are passed down. What you've been pursuing all this time was ultimately that realm of the Absolute. And now that you've realized what is truly precious in the pursuit of that realm, don't you need someone to carry it forward? Gwanghan fell silent for a moment. A deep insight shone in his eyes. If the location of the divine spear you gave me is real, and your words that gave me that true realization are right, the Absolute lies in the passing of it on, Senior. The essence of encompassing heaven and earth, past and future. That is none other than the unbroken transmission of teaching. Your 73 years of life, the 400 years of longing passed down by your predecessors, all of it will culminate in Chinpeng. That is where another kind of Absolute will be completed. A light of awe bloomed in Gwanghan's eyes. From one Absolute to another, and from that to yet another. Yeah, I suppose everyone has their own meaning of the Absolute. Since the Absolute embraces everything one holds. Yes, an endless current of transmission. I like that. I really like it. In his entire life, Gwanghan had never seen someone with such depth and insight at just 17. No, he likely never would, not even on the day he died. I've made up my mind. Your 3 requests, no, all 4 of them, I'll grant them all. Gwanghan accepted. But Chinpeng was silently looking at Unhwi, his eyes reddened. They needed to speak, just the 2 of them. Everyone nearby stepped back to give them space. Now it was just Chinpeng and me. Tears were already forming in the corners of Chinpeng's eyes. Tahonim, are you abandoning me? I shook my head. Did it look like abandonment to you? If it's not that, then why are you sending me to that man? I can do better, really. I can do so much better. If you just entrust me with anything, I'll accomplish it no matter what. Even if it costs me my life, I will. Chinpeng, yes. I reached out and gently brushed his shoulder. When I'm not around, there are 2 people I consider capable of standing in for me. You know one of them. That would be Commander Seong, wouldn't it? Right. He's the person I trust the most and the one with the highest cultivation among those around me. But if even Commander Seong had to step away, who would fill that position? Jusoa, isn't it? No, I've always thought of you. Chinpeng's eyes opened wide. I'm not lying right now. From the beginning, I've always said there's no one better than Chinpeng for the position of sub-commander or acting division head. His sense of responsibility is immense, and his strength is undeniable. He has the courage to push through anything he's entrusted with. And you've felt it too, haven't you? That the greatsword doesn't fit your hand, haven't you? How did you know? How could I not know? Aren't you my man? Tahonim. It probably didn't matter up to the state of Jang, but ever since you stepped into the flame-awakened realm, there's been a clear change in how you move. You no longer wield the sword like a sword, and yet you held on to it. Wasn't that for the sake of following after me? Ah, you really thought I wouldn't notice? Chinpeng lowered his head. Tears rolled down from his eyes and fell to the ground with a drip, drip. There's no need to follow after me. Walk your own path. Your hands were made for a spear, not a sword. So is your divine strength. The wind blew and the hem of my robe fluttered. I looked up at the sky for a moment and continued. Everyone has their own path. Yours is the path of the spear. Gwanghan will be the best guide to show you that path. In the distant future, Gwanghan would reach the grand void formless. When it came to spears, his skill surpassed mine, because I am a swordsman. Chinpeng sank to his knees on the spot and spoke through his sobs. I, Chinpeng, will never forget Tahonim's grace, not even in death. When I was in Seol, no one ever looked at me. But Tahonim, he couldn't finish. I looked at his trembling shoulders and spoke quietly. Stand. At my words, Chinpeng shook his head. I can't stand. Tahonim saw what was inside me, what I didn't even know myself, and opened the path for me. So how can I stand? How can I lift my head? I placed my hand back on his shoulder. The flame inside you was always yours. All I did was show you what color that flame really was. Chinpeng slowly lifted his head. His face was soaked with tears. Do I have to leave Tahonim now? Silence fell for a moment. I slowly nodded, and another stream of tears flowed from Chinpeng's eyes. But Tahonim, I don't want to leave your side. I really don't want to, I smiled. You're not leaving entirely. Huh, your place will always be left open. I moved the hand on his shoulder to rest atop his head. When you're satisfied with yourself, when you believe you can stand in my shadow and not be ashamed, come back. I'll have use for you. Tears burst from Chinpeng's eyes again. Unable to hold them back, he began to sob. Tahonim, I swear, even without saying the words, I could feel everything he meant. Chinpeng was the first subordinate I received after returning. I don't block the path my people must walk. Even if they idolize me and wish to be like me, if that won't truly help them, I confront it directly. Because that's right. Because they are not outsiders, they are mine fully. When you return with the spear in hand, I'll be watching to see what light rests on its tip. Chinpeng raised his head. The expression he saw on my face held only one thing: conviction. There is a realm that cannot be reached with the sword. That realm will open only when your hand grips the spear. Return as a dragon. Chinpeng nodded even through his sobs. He wiped his tears over and over, but they didn't stop. Tahonim, when I return, I will live up to your expectations. I swear it with my life. I nodded and rummaged through my sleeve. I hadn't predicted this exact situation, but I had prepared in advance. What I pulled out was a large pouch. Inside were 300 premium-grade Shinsum lotuses. When you're training or need to recover your body, take one out and burn it at your own judgment. It'll help greatly. Chinpeng accepted the pouch with both hands. Thank you, go. At that, Chinpeng bowed deeply 3 times on the spot. I will return without fail. Before long, Chinpeng stood up and approached Gwanghin. It looked like they were having a conversation, but then, with tears still in his eyes, he came back to me. Tahonim? What? He's getting on my case, asking why I didn't ask where in Hwaesangsan it was. I couldn't help it. I burst out laughing. Gwanghin looked at the 7-foot-tall man next to him, crying like a child. Starting today, this guy would be his 3rd disciple. Normally, he'd have snapped at him to stop bawling, but today, he figured he'd let it slide. He turned his head. Seol Unhwi, 17 years old. With about 3 months left before the new year, he'd soon be 18. Never in his life had Gwanghin seen a monster like that. Martial knowledge wasn't something you could understand just from being smart. Just the formulas of martial techniques made that clear enough. Even the simplest lines often held dozens, hundreds, maybe thousands of hidden meanings. Understanding all of it without real battle experience was impossible. He had a brilliant mind, and his spirit was no joke either. Judging from his hands, he seemed to use a sword. But honestly, Gwanghin felt like forcing him to switch to a spear on the spot. The light radiating from him was so dazzling it almost hurt to look. But even someone like that had one threat. Not that he seemed aware of it. So Gwanghin sent him a sound transmission. Hey, the reply came instantly. Did you forget something? Not really. But you know that saying. Which one? There's that one. About how no matter how smart you are, you'd better know that under lips dyed with rouge, the fangs NOV Cyrillic letter 456 G Cyrillic letter 4BB te, continue reading of a viper might be hiding. To that, Unhwi gave a response Gwanghin hadn't expected at all. He smirked. Wow, you're really the type to get bitten hard one day because you trust your own smarts too much, huh? I don't really feel like giving this one away for free, but fine, try interpreting that properly. Unhwi was still smiling. And with that same smile, he sent another sound transmission back to Gwanghin. They say a fool sees only the palm while the wise see the shadow. But I, senior, I see the shadow, and beyond it, I see the eye watching through it. At that, Gwanghin's eyes started to tremble violently. Ah, looks like. I made a mistake, it was ridiculous. Wow, you sly little bastard, you planted him in my lineage knowing everything. Yes, why? Why do you think? Don't tell me because he's skilled, Unhwi nodded. You've rendered me speechless. If that bastard poisons you, you're all fucking dead, you know. I'm not stupid enough to get poisoned, and for now, there's no reason for him to poison me anyway. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer, that kind of thing. Not exactly. We both want something from the other, so until we get it, it's a sort of mutual benefit. My lips curled into a smirk. And that bastard doesn't realize? Correct. Hey, yes, senior. Let's not become enemies, Unhwi also smiled. I can only hope the same, and then, thanks for the intel about the Iron Mountain of Saryong and Jang Unhyeong plotting something. No need for thanks, looks like you'd already guessed it too. There's a world of difference between guessing and being certain, wouldn't you say? True enough. In any case, until next time. Yes, I entrust Chinpeng to your care, senior. Gwanghin silently nodded as he watched Unhwi perform a respectful martial salute. KHRRK, Tahonim, and then smacked the crying Chinpeng on the head. Quit your damn bawling and let's go already. I watched the backs of Gwanghin and Chinpeng as they left. Only after they disappeared over the horizon did I turn my head. Gwanghin definitely wasn't a bad person. He'd even left me with a kind warning. But unfortunately for him, I already knew. I'd even studied it in advance. My gaze turned toward the medicinal hall. The new master of the medicinal hall in the branch division had been chosen through open recruitment. There were quite a few applicants. Out of them, I pointed to just one man. His cultivation stage was Jang. His name, Lee Myonghwa, also known by the alias Poison Master Dosa. He was 40 years old and hailed from Sambong province in the far-off nation of Jai. That region housed the renowned medical clan, the T1 Lee clan, and Lee Myonghwa was one of their descendants. He was also one of the 2 disciples of Chinseum. Now, who is Chinseum? He's the deputy pavilion lord of Poison Serpent Valley, a subsect of the main blood sect. His ability is enough to qualify as pavilion lord, but he declined the position himself. That didn't change even after I became the Blood Heaven Arbiter. The pavilion lord position was always held by someone other than Chinseum, and every one of them treated him as a superior. It was simple. Why did Chinseum refuse the pavilion lord seat? Because he had too much to do. Then why did he accept the deputy position? So he could dump all the annoying responsibilities on the pavilion lord. He's funnier than he looks, and a lunatic who buries himself in daily research to fulfill his personal aspirations. In the distant future, when Chinseum eventually declares his work complete and steps down to live in seclusion, the man who succeeds him as Deputy Pavilion Lord is none other than Lee Myonghwa, his second and last disciple. That man who is now furiously concocting new batches of Shinsamwa in the medicinal hall. There's no question about his skill. So then, why would a man like him come here? Because of Ju Soa. The secret realm that had emerged in Yangryong was now nearly forgotten, but it had definitely existed. There were survivors, and there were those who knew it had appeared. The ones who saw it to the end were martial artists of the Jeomchealan sect and Ju Soa. I checked what had become of the Jeomchealan sect and heard there had been no major issues. However, one of their disciples who had been stationed there at the time had gone missing. It was obvious. I had extracted the intel from him. Why are you staring like that? Do you like me or something? The way Ju Soa said it, there was no denying she had become Yu Cheng's target. But for now, the wisest move was to quietly take precautions and say nothing. Like I've said before, widening the front lines is the act of a fool. Now is not the time to provoke Tianlin, nor Yu Cheng, not even the main blood sect. First, I must deal with the things directly in front of me. Ju Soa, yes. Has a letter come from Saryang? Ju Soa gave a slight scoff. Of course not. The 2 leaders of those sects over there are busy plotting. You think they're going to send a damn letter? I clicked my tongue lightly. As I've said before, I don't enjoy killing people. I kill them because it's necessary. But no letter from Saryang, no message from the main Martial Alliance, or the Sichuan Alliance's main branch either. It's taking longer than I expected. Ju Soa seemed sharper than I gave her credit for. I'm guessing. The Martial Alliance and NOVYL Yoda GHT read the full story. The Sichuan Alliance just want everything to fade away quietly, right? Not bad. Tahonim. I may look like this, but I'm one of the top 5 experts of the 5 Banners formation. The 5 Banners, okay? I've lived one hell of a life in the martial world, seen all the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. You think I can't read the board? Go on then. Put it bluntly, there's a thing called class. The Martial Alliance and the Sichuan Alliance both took a huge hit from you Tahonim. And even if they wanted to bow their heads, groups with that kind of class don't bend so easily. If you ask me, Sichuan's testing the waters, and the Martial Alliance is staying silent using internal stabilization as an excuse. So that's why, right? You're aiming for Saryang next. I chuckled. You're right. See, I figured. Ju Soa wasn't wrong. Gun Mudgel and Gang Chenu must be dying to settle their grudge. But because of their class and pride, they can't lower themselves that easily. They're probably hoping that if they just keep quiet and don't act, the resentment will naturally fade away. But grudges don't disappear like that. A grudge only ends when it's taken to the very end. Ju Soa. Yes, I'll be stepping away for a bit. In the meantime, there's something I need you to do. At my words, Commander Seong sighed and rubbed his forehead. He clearly knew what I was about to do. Only Ju Soa, who didn't know, tilted her head with a blank expression. I immediately explained what I needed her to do, and after hearing the full story, Ju Soa let out a stunned laugh. Was it like this back then too? It was. Unbelievable. Fine, I'll give it a try. Just as his brush raced across the paper without rest, a faint presence stirred. His senses, sharpened to the harmonization stage, screamed at him. Someone had arrived. He immediately set the brush down and drew the sword standing beside him. "Who's there?" The moment he shouted, 2 men stepped in through the window. and the moment he saw them, Kang Cheolsen's eyes flew wide open. Don't tell me. From Hundu Ma Yomgung, the black flame demon beast. Oh ho, and since when were we friends, you brat? Startled by the bellow, Kang Cheolsen immediately clasped his hands in a martial salute. My apologies. The words slipped out in my surprise. Please forgive my rudeness. He followed up at once. Kang Cheolsen, Lord of Cheolyong Hall, greets Yurin Nim of Hundu Ma Yomgung. Then lightning struck in his mind. Could it be that his doubt, why the Sashan Alliance had taken no action, was mistaken all along? The rumor that Yurin of Hundu Ma Yomgung had gone missing after heading to meet Lee Jajeom of Jiakin had even reached Saryang. But what if he hadn't gone missing? What if something unavoidable had happened, forcing him to withdraw for a time? And what if the Sashan Alliance was now calling Hundu Ma Yomgung back to their side? Of course, Kang Chenwu. This is why a man like that commands such a massive faction. That thought lit up Kang Cheolsen's expression. If Hundu Ma Yomgung was backing them, then even that bastard Seol Unhwi would have no choice but to stand down. It wasn't just the Sashan Alliance he'd be making enemies with. He was already at odds with the Martial Alliance. If he made enemies of Hundu Ma Yomgung, one of the sects of the outer branches, too, that's not something a mere bastard son could decide on his own. It'd be a line too far. Time to speak. So you've come in person to aid Saryang, just as he was about to say those words out loud. Kang Cheolsen. Kang Cheolsen, Lord of Cheolyong Hall. Yes, I am Kang Cheolsen. You bastard, did you think you could conspire with Lee Jajeom to assassinate me? What? You insolent cur. I never dreamed the Sashan Alliance could be so arrogant, but now I see it clearly. I don't understand what you're talking about. Deny it, will you? When I was on my way to Jiakin, I was ambushed. It was your doing, wasn't it? What? You and Lee Jajeom tried to kill me yourselves? You're worse than human filth, so said Yurin, suddenly springing forward with a shout. Die! There was no explaining this. What the hell is happening? Why is this man attacking me out of nowhere? No, more importantly, why? Why doesn't this Yurin, who supposedly reached the Ipshin realm, exude the spirit or pressure of someone at that level? It didn't make sense, at least not until he saw the tremendous miasma erupting from Yurin's body. Return fire flowing shadow step. Black flames surged up beneath Yurin's feet. They weren't soot, they were alive like living things. The study went up in flames in an instant. F-whoosh. Miasma coiled around both of Yurin's hands. It grew so massive it obscured his entire figure. No doubt about it, only those who had reached the Ipshin realm could produce miasma of that scale. He didn't know what the hell was going on, but he had to respond. Cheolyong 9 profound arts. Iron body of the celestial man. Kang Cheolsen's body transformed in an instant. His skin turned as hard as steel, and golden light shone from his eyes. This was the secret art of Cheolyong Hall, its ultimate form. It was said that with sufficient mastery, it could reach the legendary state of indestructible Vajra. The technique was well respected, even beyond the sect. Please, calm yourself. He lunged toward Yurin, aiming to push him back. But he had underestimated Yurin's power, twin demon fire lotuses. The enormous miasma in both his hands bloomed into lotus shapes and slammed into Kang Cheolsen's shoulder. Boom. G-H. Before he could even clear his mind, still reeling backward, he saw them. 2 black lotus flowers climbing up his shoulder. He instantly poured all his inner energy into the shoulder. Thanks to iron body of the celestial man, the miasma was only scorching his chi and not his skin. But if he didn't remove it immediately, he'd lose the shoulder first, and then his upper body. The moment he shook off the black lotuses, a shadow fell over his eyes. Crack! Yurin's foot smashed into Kang Cheolsen's nose, and he was blasted clean through the wall. At first, she didn't understand. Why Yurin? But she didn't ask. Because with Unhwi, there was always a reason. It was a belief rooted in unshakable trust. It was Unhwi, after all. Unhwi had already embedded himself deep in Han Murin's heart. There was no room for doubt. But understanding his actions, that was another matter entirely. And now, in this moment, Han Murin finally grasped the strategy behind his actions. Unhwi had disguised himself as Yurin and attacked Cheolyong Hall to sow distrust between the Martial Alliance and the Sashan Alliance. Down below, Unhwi, wearing Yurin's face, shouted furiously at Kang Cheolsen. Why did you try to assassinate me? Do you take Hundu Ma Yomgung so lightly? You think you can sow discord between us and everlasting Snow Palace? Did you really think someone like you or Lee Jajeom could kill me? It was an intricate scheme. Through Unhwi's performance, a new truth was being born. that Lee Jaejeom had attempted to assassinate Yurin of Hun Du Ma Yomgung and frame it on everlasting Snow Palace, but failed. If that truth spread, distrust between the Martial Alliance and Sashan Alliance would deepen, and Hun Du Ma Yomgung would be swept into the conflict as well. No matter how the Martial Alliance denied it, suspicion would persist. And how did Han Murin appear right now, standing beside Yurin, indistinguishable from a Martial Alliance martial artist? People like Kang Chen-woo or Gun Mudgel surely had hidden agents planted. If someone shouted that Han Murin was one of them, how could they possibly explain it away? That's how instigation works. To deny a single sentence, you need dozens, hundreds of words and proof. Han Murin swallowed in awe. Just as Unhwi had said, only fools widen the front lines, and now he had made his enemies do exactly that. What amazed her more than anything was Unhwi himself. That martial art that bloomed black lotus flowers, so intricate yet so powerful, it lent even more credibility to his performance. Is he a genius? Han Murin was truly, honestly impressed. Unhwi, no, Yurin decided this was enough. He couldn't keep pretending to be someone at the Ipshin realm forever. Whatever tricks he used, his real level was still only 3 flowers gathering purity. He'd stuffed himself full of divine elixirs and circulated false origin true chi to imitate it, but even that had its limits. The process of turning lies into truth, this much would suffice. He sent Han Murin a sound transmission. Watch closely. True demonic fire can melt through anything. He spread his arms wide. Demon fire flame dance. A surge of violet fire erupted from Yurin's body. Like something alive, it danced in the air before shooting straight at Kang Cheolson. Stop! Please stop! There's clearly some misunderstanding. GHKK, caught off guard by the speed, Kang Cheolson flung himself aside in terror, but he didn't expect what came next. Yurin moved, return fire flowing shadow step. Black fire bloomed with every step he took. He reached Kang Cheolson in a blink and threw a punch, 3 forms of black flame, heaven-scorching flame surge. A swirling fist of miasma slammed into Kang Cheolson's solar plexus. Boom. Gok thrown backward, Kang Cheolson slumped to the ground, barely managing to lift his head. You're insane! Not a trace of hesitation. Crunch. Yurin's foot smashed into Kang Cheolson's skull, bursting it open. He turned his head. Cheol Hall was silent. Remember this, all of you. Whether the wrath of Hun Du Ma Yomgung ends with this fool or spreads to all of you, that depends on how you act going forward. Understood? Why, yes. Yes, sir. Yurin turned his head again. Then, toward the one who appeared to be from the Martial Alliance, he offered a martial salute. My thanks for your help, Dihyo. 3 targets remain. As stated before, Han Murin truly had keen instincts. In silence, so naturally, she gave a small nod in place. After all, if not now, when would she ever hear Unhwi call her Dihyo? She couldn't help but enjoy it a little. No one could stop him. Yurin now moved to confront Jang Unhyeong, Lord of Red Flame Blade Sect. And by some stroke of fortune, Yipungan of Blue Sword Sect and Wang Ming of White Tiger Sect were present too. The 3 lords of the so-called 3 lower sects under Saryang's control had all gathered in one place. The reason was obvious. Yurin Dihyo, please calm down. This is all a terrible misunderstanding. We're in the middle of a plan to pressure Light Seol Unhwi of Everlasting Snow Palace. The Martial Alliance is helping us as well. Who told you such lies? Even as Jang Unhyeong finished speaking, Yipungan of Blue Sword Sect pointed at Yuwa beside Yurin. Him, it's that bastard. He's impersonating a member of the Martial Alliance. Wang Ming of White Tiger Sect immediately followed up. That's right, Yurin Dihyo, you've been deceived by him. Hey, you, what's your name? Who the hell are you to drive a wedge between the Martial Alliance and Hun Du Ma Yomgung? Yuwa chuckled softly. You're laughing. You son of a, it's you. You're the one. The one who lured us into? Wang Ming couldn't finish his sentence. Miasma surged around him. Yurin was charging straight at him. Terrified, Wang Ming scrambled to draw his sword and flee, but unfortunately, Yurin was faster. Crack, Wang Ming's head exploded on the spot. And behind him, only the flame-marked footprints of return fire flowing shadow step remained. He had just decapitated a 3 flowers gathering purity master in a single blow. Yurin turned his head. You bastards. Now you try to deny it, thrashing about like worms. Do you think I don't remember every one of your faces from back then? Deny it, will you? Ha, fine. I didn't know your guts were so big, but I'll open you up myself and take a look. With that, he lunged straight at Yipungan. Miasma coiled around Yurin's hand. He struck without hesitation, 2 demon fire lotuses. His aim was to blow Yapungun's head off. Boom! Jang Unhyeong's sword slashed through the air and intercepted Yurin's strike. But the force behind the blow was beyond imagination. Jang Unhyeong was sent flying, sword and all. He landed and quickly took 2 steps back, pointing his blade at Yurin. From it, red flames flared up. It was the opening move of the Red Flame Heavenly Path sword technique. You're mad, truly mad. Even if this is a misunderstanding, why won't you listen? Why the hell are you? Yurin burst into laughter, but the sound was closer to terror than mockery. Now I see, you really are one hell of an actor. It was absurd. He opened his mouth to say something, but before the words could leave, Yurin moved again. In that brief instant, Jang Unhyeong lost sight of him. Yurin's fist shot toward Yapungun. Yapungun raised his sword and swung. Blue cloud flowing sword. A blue aura shot from his blade, forming the shape of a dragon. But it was wielded by a man frozen in fear, even if he was a master of 3 flowers gathering purity. There was no way it could reach Yurin. Yurin's fist crushed the dragon-shaped aura, then crushed Yapungun's skull. True miasma burns through all things. Whether it's a dragon's shape or a real dragon, miasma devours and rips it apart. Yurin turned his head. He spotted Jang Unhyeong and launched himself at him. Jang Unhyeong gritted his teeth and brought his blade down with full force. Red Flame Heavenly Path sword technique. Exploding flame shadow blade. Dozens of afterimages surged toward Yurin, but his eyes calmly scanned them all. Which were illusions, which were real. He finished his judgment in a breath. Yurin's foot shattered the ground beneath him. Thuddud. Jang Unhyeong's sword scorched the dirt, but failed to leave so much as a scratch on Yurin's body. W8? Jang Unhyeong's voice was nearly a death rattle. It should be, Yurin stood right before him. And his miasma-wreathed fist lashed out again. Twin demon fire lotuses. The lotus-shaped blast struck Jang Unhyeong's abdomen. Boom! He flew through the air and slammed into a pavilion, unable to rise. Yurin approached him. No one was left nearby. Yurin silently gripped Jang Unhyeong's throat and whispered in a low voice, "I gave you a whole day. Did that sound like a joke to you?" The voice was completely different from the earlier one, full of rage and betrayal. It was as if the person had changed altogether. No, that wasn't the point. A day. I even gave you an extra day out of generosity. I said I'd accept your letter, but all you did was scheme to stab me in the back. You, don't tell me. A smile curled at Yurin's lips, or rather at Unhwi's. And just as Jang Unhyeong's mouth began to open, Unhwi's other hand forcibly clamped it shut. What do you think this place is? KGH. GKK, this is the martial world. When you reach the afterlife, I hope you reflect on that fact. There was nothing more. Crack. He shattered Jang Unhyeong's jaw, then tossed him aside. Thud. Dust billowed into the air, just as Unhwi's foot came down. Crunch. No one could see what had burst beneath the cloud of dust, but from a distance, the many onlookers could tell by the sound alone. It was Jang Unhyeong's head. It was a night faintly lit by moonlight. The 2 of them had fully left Saryang and were walking through the mountains. As they went, Han Murin's steps grew heavier, not from exhaustion. Unhwi stopped and turned to face her. "Ta Junim," at her words, Unhwi replied, "Speak. I can't get what I saw out of my head. I just don't understand." "What don't you understand? You didn't condense any miasma at all. And yet you produced such a complete demonic fire. It wasn't the final form, the Black Lotus Chi, but, if I may say so, it rivaled the Black Lotus Chi in force." Unhwi silently regarded her as she stood there, her expression full of turmoil. "I don't know, it's like I'm about to grasp something, but the more I try, the more everything I thought I knew starts to feel meaningless." Quietly, Unhwi looked up at the night sky. Through the clouds, the stars flickered faintly. He spoke, "What do you think miasma is?" "An aura of darkness and a force of destruction." Her answer came without hesitation, and Unhwi smiled. "Do you know of the doctrine of the Golden Mean?" "Yes." "Then what is the Golden Mean?" Han Murin hesitated. She didn't understand why a Confucian teaching was being brought into a discussion about miasma. But that didn't matter. It was Unhwi giving her this lesson. As she pondered, Unhwi opened his palm. Whoosh, a violet flame blossomed there. "Look, this is miasma. People call it evil. But if there is a sun in the sky, then there must be a moon. If there is day, there must be night. If there is righteousness, then there must also be evil." He moved his palm slightly, and the violet flame began to dance. The essence of miasma is not destruction. It is flow. It is transformation. It's the same as harmony, ko hua inus, in Confucianism. Han Murin tilted her head slightly. "But Ta Junim, isn't miasma undeniably a force of destruction? When water flows, it can float a boat. But when water flows, it can also capsize one. It's the same water. The difference lies in how it is used. Unhwi began to walk again. Han Murin followed. There is something called the four sprouts, the minds of compassion, shame, humility, and discernment. These are N-O-V-Y-8, original source, the roots of benevolence, righteousness, propriety, and wisdom. Miasma has its own four seeds as well. Han Murin listened closely. The seed of destruction, the seed of transformation, the seed of fusion, and the seed of creation. Most demonic cultivators pursue only the seed of destruction. But true mastery of miasma lies in mastering all four. The night breeze passed between them. Han Murin turned his thoughts over in her mind. The miasma I used earlier was of destruction, but its purpose was not simple killing. It was for transformation, to change the order of Saryang. Unhwi looked at her once more. Miasma is not a rejection of the heaven's will, it is a different way of seeing it. Just as there can be no yang without yin, the Tao cannot be complete without the existence of demonic force. And in that instant, something clicked in Han Murin's mind. The question that had tormented her for so long suddenly became clear. So you're saying we must not deny or reject miasma, but acknowledge and accept its many aspects, like acknowledging our own shadow. A glimmer of satisfaction passed through Unhwi's eyes. Not bad, Han Murin. Yes, Ta Junim. Unity of knowledge and action, knowing and doing must become one. What you saw today wasn't mere slaughter. It was the Tao of a martial artist in practice. Miasma is not the goal, it is the means. The end of all martial arts, all weapons, all paths. Must be the person. Suddenly, Han Murin felt something shift inside her body. Her inner energy flowed through her meridians like a river, as if some long-blocked passage had opened. Ta Junim, this, Unhwi nodded. Your inner energy is now flowing into your middle danshan. The state of 5 dragons offering to the Sacred One has accepted you. Tears spilled from Han Murin's eyes. They were tears of joy and of enlightenment. All things were one. Righteous and evil, Tao and demon, yin and yang. They were not opposites, but fragments of a single whole. Unhwi smiled in quiet satisfaction. Before the insight scatters, sit in meditation and solidify it. Unless you want to be stuck between yang light manifestation and 5 dragons offering to the Sacred One forever. Without delay, Han Murin folded her legs into lotus position. As she fell into trance, Unhwi's gentle voice echoed in her ears. The road you'll walk is still long, but today you've taken a vital first step. It faded, keep going. I will be at your side. And with that, Han Murin fell completely into trance. Yangso was having an extremely busy day. He was staying at the estate of the Hwar-Yong sword sect, and when the disaster broke out in Jiakan, nearly half the estate had burned down. Hwar-Yong had been a powerful sect, and the estate had been massive. So even with half the buildings, including the main pavilion, destroyed, what remained was still large enough. It was more than enough to house Yangso and the entire Iron Mountain sword sect. In a side hall, Yangso was conversing with a man. Ha ha ha, Yangso-nim, this humble I am Jinhee has long admired you. Is that so, me? You're too kind. You're making me feel flattered, truly. Ha 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 ha. In truth, Yangso's reputation had already started to spread. In the purge of Jiakan, he had fought at the front lines, and the martial art he had displayed was that of the heavenly extreme sword sovereign, which had once shaken the martial world centuries ago. Naturally, a new epithet had attached itself to Yangso, Heavenly Sword Mad Dragon. That was Yangso's new title. If there's ever anything troubling you, seek out this I am Jinhee of the I am household. Whatever it may be, I shall gladly support. No, serve you. The I am household had been one of the hidden sects obscured behind the ruling One Gate, 3 clans of Jiakan. To be blunt, since Jiakan was Sashan Alliance territory, any sect not aligned with them had long been marginalized. Yet a few had stubbornly endured. The I am household, the Jiang clan, the Hyok clan. There were a few other sects as well, but only these 3 needed to be remembered. The head of the I am household, I am Jinhee, was a master of 5 dragons offering to the Sacred One, and the leaders of the other 2 sects were at 3 flowers gathering purity. What was interesting was their children. All of them were outstandingly talented, and quite well known even within Jiakan. They were famous enough to have a name of their own. The heirs of the One Gate. 3 clans were called the 8 Dragons of Jiakan, a title coined directly by Li Jajium of the Hwar-Yong sword sect to flaunt their superiority. By contrast, the gifted children of the I am household, Jiang clan, and Hyok clan were considered a tier below and known as the 3 Tigers of Jiakan. dragons and tigers. Just by hearing it, you could tell who was considered above who. But now, the roles had been reversed, because the 8 dragons of Jioken, every last one of them, were dead. And frankly, the 3 tigers of Jioken were never lacking compared to the 8 dragons. The young man standing before Yongso, I am Jinhee's son, was considered the most promising of them all. So it was only natural that I am Jinhee would try to form ties with Yongso, like he was doing now. And this is a token of my sincerity. I hope you'll find it useful. I am Jinhee held out a box carved from ornate purple sandalwood. Ha ha ha, you didn't have to bring something like this. Come now. Yongso laughed awkwardly, but as he slid open the lid and peeked inside, a grin crept across his face, and he quietly pushed the box beneath the desk. It was clearly a bribe, and Yongso had accepted it. But this needs to be said plainly. Yongso's action was not in defiance of Seol Unhwi's orders. Unhwi had said, becoming the branch lord of Jioken means becoming its administrator. I don't care if you take bribes or whatever else during the process of stabilizing things. But what followed was the important part. There must be no issues with the taxes sent to the main palace. And make sure you keep records. I don't care if you use double ledgers. Yongso had even asked, out of sheer curiosity, can I really do that? Unhwi had answered clearly, yes. He said taking bribes wasn't a problem so long as it didn't go too far, as long as Yongso stayed within reason. He had free reign, and this bribe fell within that boundary. Naturally, Yongso would write it down in the ledger, and he planned to send that record to Unhwi. I'll make good use of it. Ha ha ha, then I, this humble I am, shall take my leave. Take care. I am Jinhee bowed deeply and exited the room. His footsteps carried the elegance of a master of 5 dragons offering to the sacred one. But there was also caution in his manner, appropriate for someone who had watched the mighty one gate. 3 clans collapse in a single night, especially since Yongso had been one of the vanguard that brought them down. A restructuring of power centered around him was only natural. Yongso turned his head after seeing I am Jinhee off and nearly had a heart attack. Whoa, WH, when did you get here? Leaning against the wall. Sim Unhyeong took a slow bite from a golden apple and replied lazily, me, been here a while. Yongso swallowed hard, damn it. You could have said something, that was scary. Sim Unhyeong was one of the 12 cold commanders of the White Falcon Guard, personally dispatched by Unhwi to oversee Jioken after its capture. He wasn't originally born into the White Falcon Guard, but he was a master of the mythic realm. Someone of that level could move like a shadow. Honestly, it would have been stranger if Yongso had noticed him. What's scary? Dumbass, I watched you accept a bribe plain as day. So what should I do now? Cut your head off. At that, Yongso nearly jumped out of his skin. WH, what are you saying? This was all approved by Lord Seol himself. Sim Unhyeong tilted his head, genuine confusion in his eyes. That guy? Yes, you think I'd be crazy enough to pocket that in secret. How should I know you could be that kind of guy? Yongso's face twisted. He had pledged absolute loyalty to Seol Unhwi. Do I look like that kind of guy? Relax. Jackass, at least right now. Yeah, you do. Sim Unhyeong chuckled and casually opened the box. Gold light reflected off his face. Damn, how much is this? Gold coins, at least 500 nyang? Yongso said nothing. He pulled out the ledger and wrote down the exact amount. His brush strokes were precise and practiced clearly. He'd done this before. That's just for now, but it'll probably go up. This isn't the first. Sim Unhyeong picked up one of the gold coins, held it to the light, then put it back in the box. Then, with a suddenly innocent expression, he asked, hey, yes, can I take a cut? Yongso's expression grew strange. He studied Sim Unhyeong's face. It was hard to tell if he was serious or joking. Aren't you the one who's supposed to be taking less than me? Don't be stingy, you probably don't know. But the White Falcon Guard's salary is pathetic. I need a little on the side, too, or how am I supposed to live? Sim Unhyeong was whining like a child, but his eyes were sharp, like a hunting eagle's. He was watching Yongso's reactions very closely. With a reluctant sigh, Yongso said, fine, take it. Sim Unhyeong chuckled and stood, waving it off like a joke. Just kidding, what would I even do with that? Not like I've got anywhere to spend it. Yongso scratched his head and asked, when are you leaving? Why am I making you uncomfortable? Sim Unhyeong stared at Yongso. There was danger in his gaze. No, not at all. Truthfully, it was uncomfortable. Sim Unhyeong had been sent by Seol Unhwi himself. Since no one knew what might happen in Jioken, Unhwi had ordered a member of the White Falcon Guard to stand watch. And damn, if he wasn't like a ghost, sometimes he seemed totally loyal to Seol Unhwi. But the way he talked made you question that. Sim Unhyeong walked to the window and looked out. The streets of Jioken were slowly returning to peace. Burnt buildings were being torn down. New ones were starting to rise. Hey, Heavenly Sword Mad Dragon. Yes, I don't trust you, but I do trust that bastard Seol Unhwi. Sim Munryong stared out the window for a while. His eyes were full of complicated emotion. If he sat you down here, he didn't do it for no reason. He'll keep someone behind you and put people around you who'll follow you. Right, Yangso nodded. What Sim Munryong said was true. Those who would lead Jiakin's new order would be loyal to Seol Unhwi, and by extension, follow Yangso, and that was already happening. You're a softie. Me. Sim Munryong turned away and looked outside again. Emblazoned across his wide back was the character Chinese letter, marking him as the 12th commander among the 12 cold commanders of the White Falcon Guard. One of the most elite of the elite from Snow Palace. You know why I'm here? Yangso nodded. To keep the Sashin and martial alliances in check. You're half right. Sim Munryong held out his hand into the sunlight streaming through the window. Light trickled between his fingers. The real reason I'm here is to protect you. Yangso's eyes widened. Protect me. Yeah, that bastard Unhwi said so. Jiakin belongs to Yangso now. Yangso is my man, protect my man. There was weight in Sim Munryong's voice, as if he were repeating Unhwi's words exactly. Yangso suddenly felt his chest grow warm, that Seol Unhwi trusted him that much. You mean someone might try to assassinate me? Who knows, could be assassination, could be someone trying to suppress you. Don't worry about it, just do your job. Understood. But anyway, Sim Munryong suddenly grew serious. Make sure you meet the 3 tigers of Jiakin. All of a sudden, especially I am Chiwoon, meet him in private. And what am I supposed to NRV L Cyrillic letter 456 G Cyrillic letter 4 BB Tech continue reading say? What? You want me to tell you that too? I was asking for advice. Advice. My nose is pretty sensitive, and I think I caught a faint whiff of Sama outer branch off that I am Chiwoon punk. You can smell that. You think I want to? Either way, Sim Munryong was here because of Unhwi's consideration. He was sent to help Yangso stabilize and restore Jiakin. I'm not totally sure, but better safe than sorry. Call him in and have a proper talk. Will you be watching in secret? Sim Munryong just smiled and walked out of the room. Left alone, Yangso finally broke into a laugh. A new order was taking root in Jiakin. If you're talking about that, then it's fine. Why? Because I've already guessed what's behind it. Seol Unhwi's eyes widened, and Seol Unhwi, who was standing with arms crossed outside the residence, narrowed his eyes with interest. It was the palace lord's order, wasn't it, to remain silent? Did father say something to you too? He shook his head. He didn't need to, I already knew. How? If I were in danger, neither you, second brother, nor eldest brother would ever just stand by. Seol Unhwi smiled brightly, and even Seol Unhwi let out a quiet chuckle as if he didn't dislike hearing that. I actually requested it myself from the palace lord, that no one intervene. I see. I worried you might feel hurt just in case. It's all right, Nuna. With that, Seol Unhwi whispered in a small voice. I was going to try and bring a bunch of gifts back with me, but this guy insisted on coming along. You don't know this, but he's kind of shy around strangers. Isn't it funny? Cha Seolrin, the heir of the polar extremes, being shy. He's got kind of a childish side. Unhwi burst into laughter. Seol Unhwi was probably the first and last person who could speak so bluntly to Seol Unhwi. Even Seol Unhwi didn't say much back to her. If he said anything, this was the extent of it. Enough chatter. Aren't you going to let us inside? Seol Unhwi shrugged and stepped aside. Unhwi, yes, second brother. I'd like a word with you inside. Unhwi nodded and stepped ahead. I'll show you in, please follow me, second brother. And so, Seol Unhwi and Unhwi entered the residence. The place they left behind, Seol Unhwi turned a sharp gaze on Ju-soa and asked, Been a while, huh? Sure has, our famed flower of Snow Palace, have you been well? I have. Seems like your eyes haven't gone blind after all. I should have gouged them out back then. Ju-soa smirked. Wow, your tone hasn't changed a bit. Even though you're a scion of the polar extremes, your words sure lack refinement. Oh, please, like you ever cared about my refinement. Don't start with your bullshit. I never did, just saying it's a shame watching you toss it around like trash. Seol Unhwi's brow furrowed. You bitch. Oh, now we're calling each other names. My arm still tingles from the punch you gave me. How's your abdomen by N.O.V. Read more on our source, The Way. Still intact. If you could call this a connection, it was certainly a hostile one. In the Martial Alliance, there were regular Dragon Phoenix tournaments. Ju-soa had competed once, Seol Unhwi twice. They met in the preliminaries 1 year and both lost. Ju-soa's kick had slammed into Seol Unhwi's stomach. Seol Unhwi's punch had crushed Ju-soa's arm. The impact sent them both flying, right out of the ring. The preliminaries were held in a massive arena. Going out of bounds was an automatic disqualification. Naturally, they were both disqualified. The prize that year had been the Great Rejuvenation Pill of Seol, a pill lost to history in the chaos of the thousand-year strife. The recipe itself was gone. At the time, both were at 3 flowers gathering purity, the highest level among the competitors. Either one had a high chance of winning the prize, but because they were disqualified, neither walked away with it. There was no way they could harbor goodwill toward each other after that. "How long are you planning to stay here?" At Seol Unhwi's question, Ju Soa replied flatly, "No idea." Originally, her stay had been set at 1 year, but she had no intention of leaving afterward. Being around Unhwi was, honestly, just too interesting. More than anything else, your little brother, who also happens to be my Ta Junim, yeah, he's finding all kinds of useful things for me to do. If you've got a problem, why don't you go tattle on me? Seol Unhwi turned her head away. So did Ju Soa, the only one to congratulate Han Murin for reaching 5 dragons offering to the sacred one was Wonyang. She whispered softly, "Congratulations." "Yes, well, it's not that big a deal." On the way to the residence, Unhwi paused mid-step. The sparring between Seol Unhwi and Ju Soa wasn't loud, but he could hear it clearly. Seol Unhwi spoke quietly. "Does it bother you? I'd be lying if I said it didn't. Even if they were once close, Ju Soa is now my subordinate." "You don't like that a subordinate is speaking that way to Seol Unhwi, heir of the polar extremes? I think she needs at least some discipline." Seol Unhwi nodded, as if he understood perfectly. Then he said, "There's something you don't know." "I don't. How many people do you think Unhwi truly calls a friend?" That made Unhwi flinch for a moment. No matter how extraordinary he was, Unhwi wasn't perfect. No one in this world is perfect. No matter how many praise you as someone who sees through all things, it doesn't mean you actually can. Who is Seol Unhwi's closest friend? Unhwi couldn't answer that easily. It was 4 years ago. At the Martial Alliance's Dragon Phoenix tournament, Unhwi was eliminated in the prelims, alongside a woman named Ju Soa. As if recalling the memory, Seol Unhwi's lips curled into a faint smile. She took it hard, swore she'd train until she could beat Ju Soa and never stopped. Eventually, she reached 5 dragons offering to the Sacred One. Among the young female martial artists of today, those 2 boast the fastest and most exceptional growth. For Unhwi, Ju Soa is both a rival and a mirror. Each sharpens the other's blade. There was genuine interest in Unhwi's eyes, a relationship where both sharpen each other's blades. A striking phrase. "May I hear more?" Of course. A sword cannot sharpen itself. It needs a grindstone. And in being ground, the grindstone is worn away too. Such is their relationship. In my eyes, it's the kind of bond that might only come once every 30, maybe 50 years. Seol Unhwi's gaze deepened. "Unhwi, yes, second brother. In the garden that is the martial world, each flower blooms with its own color, but some only shine brighter when they bloom together. Ju Soa may be a gift from the heavens, a flower that helps Unhwi bloom more vividly." He glanced skyward. Insight lingered in his eyes. The laws of the world are strange. The people who clash most fiercely are sometimes the ones who understand each other most deeply. A flower blooming alone on the polar frost may fall to a single breeze, but flowers leaning on each other can survive a storm. Seol Unhwi smiled gently. "Before you consider her your subordinate and discipline her, try seeing her as someone who fills the emptiness in Unhwi's heart. On the noble snowscapes of the polar extremes, even a single spring breeze is precious. And a worthy rival is a gift to be cherished, not something to be resented." It was strange. There had only been one other time Unhwi had a long conversation with Seol Unhwi. Back then he was half dead from the 1,000-year serpent's poison, nearly dissociated from his own soul. But even then, he'd felt it. Seol Unhwi's insight was exceptional, and now, once again, he was certain. It was no coincidence Seol Unhwi had named Seol Unhwi the next palace lord. "Your words strike deep in my chest, second brother." "Do they?" "Yes, those who practice martial arts often dream of standing at the summit. That's true of third sister, you, eldest brother, and me alike. But even if we haven't reached the top yet, none of us are unaware of how lonely and cold it is up there. If there's someone to share the wind with, what greater blessing could there be?" Seol Unhwi's eyes shone. The youngest sibling was anything but ordinary. Not only did he understand everything, he had his own convictions. More than anything, "Thank you, second brother. I hadn't considered things from that angle. After our conversation today, I've gained much. I'll pretend not to notice their dynamic from now on." He wasn't ashamed to admit what he'd lacked, and to fill it through acknowledgement. How had the youngest changed so much? In this moment, Seol Unhwi felt immense relief. If he could not fulfill his duties, this younger brother would carry the burden. The human heart is said to be sharper than any sword and softer than water. But as Cha Seolrin, I can't begin to fathom the depth of you, Hyun Seolrin. Unhwi laughed. You're giving me too much credit. I feel the same. Your insight, second brother, is something I could never hope to match. You can match it. Perhaps you've already surpassed it. I won't say anything to that now. You might feel hurt. That made Seol Unhwi chuckle softly, and Unhwi's eyes widened. It was, how should he put it, an honest smile, the first he'd ever seen from him. Come inside. I've got a line of gifts for you. I look forward to it. Their steps toward the residence were light, and the footprints they left behind were as clear and deep as snow in the polar expanse. Unhwi and Seol Unhwi sat facing each other inside the residence. Outside the window, the snowy peaks of the Seol Mountains gleamed in pure white. Inside, the room was filled with a comforting warmth. In their previous lives, the two had not exchanged so much as a single word. But in this life, so much had changed. It was a stark contrast, almost shockingly so. Unhwi felt a flicker of curiosity. What exactly had Seol Unhwi come here to say? Seol Unhwi opened his mouth. We wandered a bit earlier, but I came here today because there's something I want to give you and something I need to say. Please speak, second brother. Seol Unhwi's gaze softened. If not for you, I may not even be sitting here now. That matter with Yaksu as well. I wanted to express my gratitude for everything. I only did what had to be done. Seol Unhwi shook his head. No, you risked your life to act. You covered for my foolish mistake. And you helped me fully absorb the power of the thousand-year serpent. If I tried to repay that kind of grace with mere words, how could I still call myself a man?